Right, hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of RAILpeople, the podcast from RAILstuff. Shameless plug time to start us off, rail-stuff.com, where you can go for all of your model railway scenics and accessories. But in this episode you are in for a real treat, as we're going to get to speak to someone who is truly invested in just how fantastic creativity in scenery can be. In fact, she's pretty much made a career out of it. Alongside scenics, our guest has her hand in all kinds of modelling, railways included, and was even a judge on Channel 5's Model Railway Challenge. With almost 90,000 subscribers on YouTube and a huge following on social media, it's my absolute pleasure to say hello to Kathy Millatt.
Hello, it's brilliant to be here. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem, and it's great to have somebody with such a passion for scenics on the podcast. We'll get to all of that later, but I know you have listened to the very first podcast that we did a few weeks back, so you are already prepared for question number 1, but it is vitally important. What is your favourite cheese?
I'm not really a cheese fan. I'd rather have chocolate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. No, look, I'm into chocolate as well, so I can switch that to what's the best chocolate that you've ever eaten.
Oh, something dark. I love a box of chocolates. I love reading the descriptions and then picking them and then eating them little by little and then going for the next one and the next one.
Those descriptions on a proper chocolate box are like fine wine, aren't they? The way they word them. But,
they are.
Yeah, do you know, I've never been a dark chocolate fan. I've got too much of a sweet tooth. I think that's my problem. But anyway, look, let's move on to things a little bit more in keeping with what this podcast is all about. I think most people will be familiar with either your work on YouTube or from when you did the Model Railway Challenge. But I think the thing that I wanted to know most was, how did you get to where you are now? What's the journey? What's behind it all?
It's just always a series of coincidences and just events. You look back and you think, I never planned this, but this is where I've ended up. So I originally got into model railways with my dad when I was a kid, you know, that old story. And then I guess like everybody, I needed the desk the railway was on for my homework, and it got packed away. It was Hornby 003 rail, so I used to play with it every Christmas and then had it out for a period. But the highlight of my scenery was bright orange builder's sand and green paint. So it wasn't the best necessarily. And I remember the white lines on my road were almost a third of the width of the road. I've come a long way since then. And I know how I got back into it. I went on holiday to Mevagissey and they have World of Model Railways. And it's a permanent exhibit with railways in it. And I remember thinking, oh, I enjoyed that as a child. And I think that's really important about getting kids into the hobby, is you do look back and remember what you did as a child and the emotion of enjoyment. Well, I enjoyed that. And I remembered the magazine articles. My dad had a couple of railway modelers and things like that. And I found one of the early inspiration ones, which was a Welsh slate quarry. And I started to model. After that, got loads of magazines, started to model. And that was about 2000. And I set up in my first house a UK layout based on where I lived, because I lived by a railway line. So it was actually a really boring layout because it was just track going past my line and Dorridge station, and that was it. And I never finished it. And then I moved house and brought it with me and put it on the lower deck of a loft layout. And I started a different layout on the top layout. And the reason for that was Derby Model Railway Show in even years had a US outline hall. And I went there and I was like, this is really good. I really like the US style of modelling. It's not a GWR branch line. You can have trains running down the street. You can have deserts. You can have logging. So I joined the NMRA, spent a lot of time debating what I was doing, and then decided to model New England because it was like England. I don't know why. I just thought at least I won't get it wrong. But actually I went there in 2009 for a NMRA National Convention in Hartford, Connecticut, And I was like, it looks nothing like England. There's trees everywhere. There's no green rolling hills. And it just doesn't look like us. So I came back and ripped out it was my first US layout, and created the now sadly demised second US layout. And it's the New Haven, and it had a city, it had a port, had a steam servicing yard, had a little mill river, and a valley sort of branch line on a third deck because it was multi-deck. The UK bit the dust, and I sold all that stock, and I started to build it. And I was really heavily invested in the NMRA, spent a lot of time there. At the same time, I was still doing sci-fi, and if I'm sitting in my dining room on this podcast, and if I look to the side of me, all my dioramas, probably one a year, were sci-fi. So I've Transformers, Machine and Krieger, all sorts of stuff. And I also did some O-scale, and then I started to do an ON30 logging layout. And somewhere along the way, I realised I was doing too much stuff. So I got rid of the ON30 layout and thought, I'll just do the New Haven. And I'm very driven. And I'd planned it all the way through, and I love planning stuff. And then I started to do YouTube seriously. I've had a channel since 2010, but I was looking at perhaps changing my career over time. And this is a long journey. I was an accountant before, of moving into contracting and perhaps increasing the amount of time I spent on model railways and less on accounting, perhaps going part-time. And over the next 4 or 5 years, I did that, and I tried to grow my YouTube channel. And I realised very quickly that a half-built layout in your loft, where everything is half done, is not actually great for YouTube content, because you can't get the camera angles, the lighting isn't there, and it's too hot for half the year to go up there. So what do you do then? Do you just go up and look bright red and sweaty all the time? Or what do you do? Especially this summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just classic. But even in the winter, it can easily get up to late 20s in there, early 30s, with all the lights on, because it's all lit with fluorescent tubes. And there's 3 layouts, effectively 3 levels to light, a lot of light. So I stopped doing that and started to do dioramas downstairs. And it's always the designing and the scenery I've loved best. So dioramas allowed me to explore different elements than my layout. My layout was 50s, New Haven line, New England, July 5th. Wonderful, all very sunny, all very the same scenery. And I realised over the last 4 or 5 years that I'd stalled on it. I started a second layout inspired by Steve Flint and the Great Model Railway Challenge, and we planned it, and I love the planning bit, and I researched it, and I was inspired by that first layout that had inspired me, that slate quarry. So I started to look at Dinorwic, and I decided to do Port Dinorwic because it's slightly more interesting and it's a slate dock. And I stalled on that one because I tried loads of techniques, all new, most of them didn't work, and I didn't like it, and it sat in the middle of my kitchen floor for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then I put it in the skip for the builder next door with his permission, and thought, well, I'll start again. So at this point, I was stalled on my upstairs railway, I was stalled on Port Dinorwic, and I got to the end of a 4-year contract that I've been doing as an accountant. I've been on and off, I'd done like 3 stints with them. And I thought, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and make my full-time job doing content creation. So I wrote a book, and it's sat next to me. I wrote Building Realistic Model Railroad Scenery. It's on Amazon. You can buy it now. Shameless plug.
Absolutely. Go for it.
It's a Bible to scenery, and it was replacing the Carmack. So it's a US publisher. It was replacing their scenery Bible written by Dave Frary, who's a very big name over there. And it's been in print, the original, since 1984.
Wow.
They wanted someone to rewrite it. It took me a year to do, but I thought, I'm going full time. This will give me structure for the first year. It also ended up creating a lot of very odd dioramas because I wanted to show a technique. So I had to create a diorama to show that technique. And I finished off a couple of things to just show how to do waterfalls or something. So I created all that, spent a year writing this book, and it takes a long time to write a book. When they say you only have 1 book in you, when they say you have 1 book in you, I think they also mean you only have 1 book in you, because once you've written one, you don't want to do it again. And I thought I'll make YouTube a plank of that strategy. And I went full time in March 2020, just as lockdown hit.
Oh, your timing couldn't have been really any better.
Good. Yeah, except, and I put on about 50,000 subscribers over that couple of years. But then I stalled. And because I was not doing railways, a lot of people who'd first subscribed to me expected me to do railways. And what I was doing was odd things, and there were plenty of YouTubers who dot around. So it's not solely me, and they all just had the theme scenery. But I wanted to do explosions, I wanted to do snow and ice, I wanted to do lava. And you can't do explosions and lava really easily on a model railway.
Well, unless it's on the Model Railway Challenge, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So I somehow changed slightly what I was doing. I went for full diorama builds rather than the tutorial I had been before. Because if you want to go on YouTube, you need to do perhaps a different style. And I just crashed. Somewhere along that, my best dioramas are all my Star Wars ones. But it was an awful 2 years. I'm not going to kid. If someone said to me, I want to go full time on YouTube, I'd be like, don't. Just don't. Have something else you want to do, and by all means send people to YouTube to show off whatever else you're doing. But YouTube on its own is just soul destroying, because I'd put a video out and it would go in 9 of the previous 10, and then my next video would be 9 of the previous 10, and each video I put out for about a year was lower in numbers than the previous one. And part of it was people coming out of lockdown, so there wasn't as much YouTube being watched. But I've seen other creators start below me in that time, and they're now on 500,000 subscribers. I just wasn't hitting that YouTube algorithm. You can change your thumbnails, you can change your titles, but at the end of the day, if YouTube doesn't get a lot of views at the beginning, it's very rare those videos ever come back from the dead. And I just didn't grow. So I was stuck with, I'd finished the book, I planned to do ebooks and video courses, but I didn't, having written a big book, they were just too similar if I did them on scenery. It just was robbing content from this. So I really struggled. And I was really struggling. I'm a very steady person. I have never been so up and down in my life. You'd pour your heart and soul into this, whatever it was you were doing, and nobody would watch it. And it's like they're not watching you. So your creative endeavour suddenly is not wanted.
It's difficult not to take it personally, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very difficult. So I struggled. I was up and down all over the place. And don't worry, there's silver linings to this. And rewind back to before I went into this full time. I had gone to the last Worley 2019. And I'd gone to Gauge Master. I was with Pat, the exec producer for Great Model Railway Challenge. And he was thanking everybody who'd supported him. So he was on the Gauge Master stand, and he got chatting to this guy there, and the other guy he was with was chatting to me. And I remember he had a very expensive camel coat, and he was setting up a tourist attraction in London based on miniature Wonderland. And he's not a modeler, businessman, just saw an opportunity for something in the miniature world. So going into content creation full time, I actually did have a number of other projects that died with lockdown to do with advertising and miniatures and all this sort of stuff. So I didn't just go to write a book and become a YouTuber, but over the 2 years, everything else evaporated, and I didn't want to write the ebook. I hadn't got the oomph, and I got too low to want to pick myself out of it. And I'd had some discussions with these people early on, and then it kind of fizzled out with lockdown. Fast forward September last year, they get back in touch. Well, we've got a new site in London. It's going ahead. We just need to get it funded. And obviously getting funding for startup takes time. We'd like to talk to you about coming on board because we need someone who's into railway modelling. But you don't just do railway modelling. You do everything else. You understand animation. You understand so much more modelling than just the railways. And I was like, brilliant. And it really lifted me out of that dark place I was in almost. So got involved, done a lot of work with them. Funding is inching closer. We've had an offer, but it was just not good. So we're now on the second round. It's let's hope it's in the next few weeks, but I'm not going to jinx it by saying that. And we're getting closer. And it's going to be an amazing project. And I remember Pat, the exec producer, saying to me as I walked away from the Gauge Master stand, he said, You could be creative director of that if you wanted. And I went, no, me? No, I'm an accountant, what? And now, 3 years later it will be, I could well be.
Wow.
And I'm only in this position because I did YouTube, and so somebody recommended me to the Great Model Railway Challenge. So I was chatting to the exec producer at Worley, who took me to a stand, and I talked to some random people, because when I go to a Gauge Master, I go to buy, I don't stand to chat to people. And otherwise I wouldn't have met them. So it's funny how coincidences mount up. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the project, because it's really exciting.
Yeah, it sounds it.
One of the things I haven't put a lot of content out is railways, because I kind of thought this was coming sooner. But I have actually built a railway in between, so I'm not that bad. So this is called Pocket Planet. Once we get funding, websites and social media and everything else will go up. But until then, it's still a bit of a dark art. And if you look on the internet, you'll see RM Webb talking about it back when it was at Worley. But actually, it's absolutely fascinating. So we're now in a really prime location with a good retail spot. And we've got the upstairs floor of, it used to be a shop, but the upstairs floor to put in a miniature world exhibit. I think it's 1,300 square meters. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about that much. And we've got obviously some toilets and stuff to come out of that. It's central London. It's really peak tourist. So this is a tourist attraction. So it is actually probably channeling more the Great Model Railway Challenge than it is a GWR branch line. So it's not just trains, it's planes. We're going to have a working airport. It's boats, it's cars, it's bikes, loads of animations. Full backdrop is audio visual, so you can have the change of the day through night, you could have a plane going past, you could have a thunderstorm if you wanted. There's loads of things you can put on there. It is aimed probably more at the family market with children, and it's going to be absolutely exciting. We did some initial designs for funding, and now obviously it's waiting for the money to come through to pour ourselves into the design phase, which comes next.
I mean, you mentioned earlier on just how important it is to infuse children and generate those future modelers. A project like that is perfect for it.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's just so exciting, and the kids love it. There's a few around the world, and the majority of people going to them are probably families. You do get the older person who comes along because they want to see a miniature world, but quite a lot of it is families or even school parties.
Yeah, and the inspiration that people can get from that is absolutely phenomenal. So it's that I wasn't expecting any of that today. That's a great project for us to all watch out for in the future. I suppose
I'm going to give a little plug here.
Oh, please, yeah.
So we need to design it next, and obviously we also need to build it. There are a number of miniature worlds around the world that we will probably be using to do it, the majority of the building, because they have experience.
Yeah.
And they've built them before. And it's actually quite hard to build a layout that has all the right elements and is going to be running for so much time. You think my layout got run, every now and then. This will be running 24/7 practically. But if anybody is interested in and has a kind of design background, we are going to be designing miniature worlds, and it will be based on London, the UK, and then rest of world to be decided. And that will be kicking off fairly shortly. So if anyone's interested, do get in touch and let me know, and I'm sure my social medias will be down below.
Yes, so we'll make sure that we link those. Obviously for anyone who wants to find Kathy on social and hasn't quite seen that stuff down below, just give us your main social media where people can get in touch with you.
It's Instagram, and it's Kathy Millatt. You just have to spell my name right, because I'm the only Kathy Millatt spelt that way in the world. So it's KathyMillatt.
Perfect. So go find Kathy on Instagram, and if you've got that design background and you're interested in getting involved in this project, then please get in touch, because it certainly sounds exciting. Before we, there's a lot of stuff that I want to unpick from that brief story that you've told us about how you've got to where you are. Before we do that, though, I'm going to give you a bit of a quick-fire question here. I always like to do this just because I want to get people's very first reaction to a number of questions. So very first one, because I've themed these a little bit more around scenics this week for you. So first one is static or scatter?
Static. If you're doing grass, it's got to be looking like the grass, and scatter doesn't look like grass when you're up close. If you're at the back of a layout and you're just filling ground and it's not going to be seen up close, scatter's fine.
Perfect. Next one, hand brushing or airbrush?
I hate my airbrush, but I need it because there's some things you just can't hand brush. But out of choice, I'd pick up a hand brush first.
Okay, very good. If you were doing some weathering, are you going wash or pigment?
Probably both. I'd probably do an oil wash first because I just love how oil washes work. But they do take a long time to dry. And I may have, on Port de Norway, needed to pat it down with some pigment because it stayed sticky for too long.
I think most people have been there before. Okay, let's look at the very base of your work. Plaster cloth or sculptor mould?
Sculptor mould, but for my upper layout, I would have used plaster cloth for weight. It's not that sculptor mould's heavy, it's just it's hard to manipulate afterwards. It becomes quite solid. Plastic cloth is quite easy to push through and change things around.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you're building a kit, I'm thinking probably more model railway side of things here. Are you going plastic or laser cut wood?
Depends what I'm modelling. If I'm modelling something that's wooden, I'd use wood if it's available. Otherwise, I'd use plastic because, plastic wood looks naff, and wood as anything other than wood looks naff as well, in my opinion.
Very good. Yeah, I mean the laser cut stuff is becoming more and more popular right about now, and I get blown away by the kind of detail that people can add into the laser cut stuff these days. But look, let's talk about the Model Railway Challenge, because you mentioned it a couple of times there, and I think you surprised me by saying that you were an accountant. And that's because I grew up with an accountant. My dad was an accountant, and I just can't ever imagine him or anyone he worked with launching a YouTube channel and modelling in the way that you do. So how does somebody who is an accountant by trade end up as a judge on the Model Railway Challenge?
I had a YouTube channel, and I also was in the NMRA, and the then British president, they'd been ringing around all the groups asking for people to get involved doing teams, and he was one of the early ones. He was a lovely guy, and he chatted to Pat, the producer, and recommended me as a judge. So Pat, the producer, got in touch and said, and eventually I came back to him because I wasn't sure about it, and he went down for a screen test a couple of times to London, met them. That was it. They wanted someone, I guess, who wasn't an older man, because we had Steve Flint, so they didn't want two old men. Not that Steve's old; he's, definitely a spring chicken. But they wanted different dynamics, I think.
And let's be honest. That can be difficult in this hobby to achieve. But actually, I did think just this morning actually that I wanted to talk to you briefly about diversity in the hobby, because it does feel like it's getting better. When I go to shows, there are a lot more women. There's more people of a diverse gender background. I'm trying to pick the right words there, and the hobby seems very open and welcoming to people of all backgrounds. But it is still very male dominated. Has that ever caused you problems, or?
Do you know, my first answer is always no. I've always been incredibly welcomed, but I spent quite a lot of time in the US, and all my problems have been when I've been in the US. I've got a stalker who was a very shy introvert and probably harmless, but I still remember turning around to them as they stalked me down a corridor at midnight in a hotel and told them to,
go away.
I'd already blocked them on everything by that point. And so it can be quite difficult. I had another guy flame me completely because he looked, he was chatting to me and he wouldn't take the hint that I didn't want to meet up. How if you can't make the first 50 things you get invited to, you probably don't want to go. Couldn't get the hint. And then when I met him in person, because it was a convention, he was really creepy. And I mentioned him to someone else who was a woman, and they went, oh yeah, if he'd got in a lift, I'd have got out. So there's definitely people out there who are really weird, but they're all on the other side of the Atlantic, thankfully. This country, anybody who's grouchy with me, they're actually grouchy old men who are grouchy with everyone. So it's not just me.
No, I can tell the kind of folk that you're talking about there. But what more could the hobby do to welcome more female modelers, more people from different ethnic backgrounds as well? Because it's a very white hobby in the UK. What do you think the hobby can do more in that sense?
I think sadly it comes with having more of them, so people feel it's secure and safe.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in the NMRA, we used to go around to people's houses. So I would turn up at some bloke's house for a group meet. And, there's plenty of women who wouldn't do that.
Mm.
It's very difficult. I mean, I went round to someone's house that I literally had phoned up and never met. It's hard to expect people, and I think it's got worse. Bear in mind, I started back in this in 2000. That's 22 years ago. I was a lot younger. The world was a slightly different place back then. And I remember saying to someone, I'm surprised I don't have any problems here. He said, well, Kathy, you're known and respected as a modeller almost before you're a woman because you're so well known. It's hard to get into it if you're not that person. And sadly, social media has a lot of good points, but it also has a lot of people who are willing to slap others down to make themselves feel big. And I mean, thankfully I've only been spent porn once, but there's definitely something where women get a lot of attention, especially if they put themselves. I actually for 3 or 4 years never put myself in a photo because I was fed up of men writing to tell me I was gorgeous and could they marry me. Because I'm like, I'm putting my modelling out there. I don't want you to marry me, weirdo. You don't know me. I might be really crabby. You're seeing this little curated life of me that makes dioramas. I might be a real bitch outside of that. You just don't know. So obviously, I don't want to marry you because I don't know you. And it's really bizarre. But I've met some great people through social media. I'm just doing a collaboration with somebody, a rebel-based build, he's produced an amazing Scorpion droid. It's about this size, and I'm going to put it on a Tatooine diorama for him, and it's going to go back to his 8-year-old son because I've run out of space. And so we met in this car park in a service station when I was coming back from my dad's earlier, and it's 2 hours from where I live and right next to where he lives. So we met there and we identified I have a whatever car I have and he had his car, and we meet and we hug, and then it's like, but we've never actually met.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It's really funny.
And that can happen quite easily these days. I mean, I'm currently sat. I mean, you can see it. People listening can't. I'm sat in my garage. This is actually my racing chair because I do a lot of online racing, sim racing as people call it, and I've been doing that for years. And a couple of weeks ago, I finally met somebody who I know really well and probably speak to more than I do my missus because I'm online, racing with him pretty much every night. But yeah, it does give you those opportunities. I think probably the difficult thing for people was taking those opportunities and turning them into meeting up with people for the last couple of years because of lockdown. And it's been fascinating going to shows and seeing the reaction of people coming back to their first show in a couple of years and what it means to them. Are you much of a model railway show goer? I know you mentioned Worley, but do you get around to any others?
No, because I'm too busy trying to fill content for my YouTube channel when I'm working. Because I would literally do YouTube all weekend, every weekend, and now I'm gone full time. Someone did this lockdown thing, and I just haven't got back into it. And ironically, I said before lockdown it'd be brilliant because I'll be able to go to shows at the weekend and I can model all week. In reality, because my channel wasn't doing well, I just worked. I worked every day, all day, all night. I even worked Christmas Day. So I wouldn't have gone to them anyway because I was just trying to get something out that would be successful.
Yeah.
And that's the danger of, YouTube.
Yeah, well, it's the danger of working for yourself, full stop, isn't it?
I'm the worst boss. I'm a really good boss, I like to think. Obviously, my staff would tell you. When I was an accountant, I used to manage, departments of 40 odd people. I miss that office.
Yeah.
I miss that chatting to people.
Yeah.
I have to come on podcasts just to talk to people now.
Well, on that, and I will come back to the Model Railway Challenge at some point. We've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but that's good. I like a tangent. You mentioned about missing the office and things like that, and I can identify with that. But is there a danger, you think, in turning a hobby into a career? Does it take some of the sparkle off the joy for you, or not?
I love modelling still. I am so passionate. It fills every single waking moment. The downside is it fills every single waking moment. When I want to do something on a Sunday afternoon as time off, I'm doing inverted commas in real life that you can't see, I get some modelling out. That's just ridiculous. So I actually clipped a Gundam kit because I love Gundam kits. They just go together so nicely. It's quite therapeutic. You're just clipping and putting things together like an instruction. It's like a puzzle. So I did that for my holiday. I'm on a July-August go slow. I did a video the first couple of weeks for a friend who I've met through doing this. I did a sponsored video and he was the designer and he'd got a Kickstarter coming out. So I did the video for that when I was supposed to be having time off. So my time off has drifted on and on. I've got to go back on Monday and get this Scorpion droid done. But I've got a Titanfall helmet over there and I've got a Star Wars Legion set to build, both of which are personal projects that have started. And the problem is I sit down on a Sunday afternoon, do it, and then I have to clear it all off for Monday off my workstation. So in the new workshop, which I'm starting building in September, it's just my loft. I'm going to basically have 2 stations so I can keep my personal projects out and finish them. But I still love modelling. What I hate is having to be popular, because I'm not bothered about being popular. I hate having to be funny on YouTube so I do well. I hate having to be good at video editing because I suck at it. I hate having to do witty camera shots when I'm desperately trying to pour resin. There's so many things about being a full-time modeller. Even when I can pick my subjects, I'm obviously really bad at it because most of them haven't done well. But just when I'm choosing what I'm modelling, there's so much else that goes round it. Like doing my accounts. I'm an accountant. I hate doing my accounts because I'm an accountant. And I've just spent hours putting, because I'm VAT registered still from my previous job. I had a company for it. So I'm still putting on receipts from Amazon. I spend so much on Amazon. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's a lockdown habit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's go back to the Model Railway Challenge then, because there must have been some amazing moments in doing that. Is there anything in particular that really stands out to you as a core memory of that? And for those of you who cannot see right now, Kathy has a mischievous look on her face right now. So yes, we're intrigued now.
Okay, so one of my favourite moments was Guion, who is a great guy and actually had wireless LEDs before Adafruit brought them out. He's a really gifted modeller, loads of animation and everything, really great guy. But he'd made this animated 00 figure whose head moved and he lost the head. So he was going like, I've lost my head, I've lost my head, I've lost my head, I've lost my head. And Tim has a pile of heads in his pocket for some reason. So he pulls one out and goes, I've got a head. And Green comes out, that's not my head, that's not my head.
Oh, you can just imagine the panic that must have been going on in his actual head.
And he's not that high pitched in real life. You know, just want to make it clear, he's a manly man. He's not high pitched and girly.
What was the best layout that you saw? I say layout, but were they layouts or were they more dioramas or were they somewhere in between the two? What was the best one?
It's so hard because there were so many good ones, and they were all good, but some. Gosh, I really liked the winner of the first season, Aberdeen City of Tears, because I'd love to do a sci-fi train and combine both my hobbies, and I just loved what they did. All the Aberdeen layouts were good, and Team Grantham did some wonderful stuff. You know, they were just also really impressive on their layouts. but I couldn't pick one as a favourite because everybody was good, and it just wouldn't be fair because there were so many good ones, and everybody had brilliant elements in them, and everybody had problems with trying to do stuff in 24 hours.
I think one of the reassuring things for the average modeler was seeing some of the problems that people had, the standard problems of just getting their track work running properly, and it seemed like that you guys were constantly having to go around saying they really need to get the basics done before they can get any further. Was that the same for everyone, you think?
No, I mean, there were some people who were just brilliant at track laying and they forged ahead and got everything down and done. And there were other people, I mean, there were quite a few novice teams who hadn't really done a huge amount of modelling of the railway sort, and some of them had done none at all.
Wow.
And I mean, I remember one team getting their layout wired by somebody else because they just had no idea what to do. And it was really great to show how everyone, it might have been a competition, but everyone pulled together.
Yeah.
The Aberdeen guys were great to borrow tools off. They brought almost an entire, screw fix supply depot with them. And they were just, everybody was really, really great. They just were so helpful to each other. So if somebody was stuck on something or wasn't working, someone else would go and help them.
Do you ever see it coming back?
No, I get asked it a lot. The production company, I think quite a lot of them left over lockdown because they would have been contractors and it shrank and all that. And I don't think they've necessarily come back. And Channel 5 had not renewed it. And I know they tried the Netflix and some of the others and they'd not had it picked up. So I think that's a real shame because he did so much to promote the hobby. And there were people, and I remember talking to someone who says, well, it's not pure hobbyist. And I'm like, you want kids in or they'll never come back when they're older and do your pure hobbyist. Because frankly, a GWR branch line is fairly boring for a child.
And I think it still provides plenty of inspiration to those that want to be a pure hobbyist as well. I mean, just so that you know, the reason I got back into model railways was from watching the Model Railway Challenge. So I had a model railway when I was a child. Very similar story to you. Get to a certain age where all of a sudden you need the space for whatever it is. So model railway gets packed away, eventually gets sold on, whatever. And then you get to the point in life where I went to university, so all of my money then gets spent on beer. All of your time gets taken up by other things, and then you start working, and eventually in life things start to come full circle a little bit, and you start to hark back to some of the things that you enjoyed as a kid. And I happened to be spending some time with my dad, and we watched Model Railway Challenge. And whilst we were probably on about the 4th episode, and he just said, do you know what, I quite fancy giving that a go sometime. And within half an hour, we'd spent 30 quid on a starter set off eBay. Just a basic, second-hand...
So cheap. That's probably the least you've ever spent on anything.
Without doubt. And that turned up, and then it just exploded from there, really, to the point where I'm now... doing this stuff for a living as well.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant story.
I mean, the show was an inspiration for lots and lots of people. Where did the inspiration for the show come in the first place? What was it? Somebody that was a modeller themselves, or was it just a case of somebody thought, well, lots of people are into model railways, so let's do a TV programme about it?
Very much the latter. So apparently Channel 5 had one of those brainstorming sessions where people go along and come up with great ideas for new shows, and they were looking for some more like the Great Pottery Throwdown or the Sewing Bee or the Bake Off, and someone said, what about model railways?
Actually,
that was it.
They were right, weren't they? Because
they were.
One of the
I
things
still think 24 hours is tough.
Yeah, definitely.
I would do it. I'd rather judge it, and I had to look stern a lot. So people are like, you always look grumpy. Well, they told me to look stern. My stern look. I'm very good at pointing for TV now.
Well, it's one of those things that also showed off the creativity of modelers. And for me, that's why I love scenics so much, is because you can be so creative with it. What is it that got you to the point where you were more focused on scenics rather than In the case of model railways, you were less focused on track and trains and more focused on scenics and what goes around the track.
To me, the greatest compliment you could pay me is it looks just like the real thing. And train and tracks get you so far, but scenery gets you the end bit. And it's not just the scenery, it's the back scene, it's the planning, it's the colour palette. It's just, there's a whole host of things, all about written in my book, actually. Joking.
Good, make sure you buy it. It's on Amazon.
I actually did a massive chapter on planning. We had to cut it down a bit because I had so much on planning and just scenery concepts.
Yes, but failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah. No, I don't plan to fail. I often fail from lack of planning. It's a different story. But for me, I like to take a scene and I have a vision of what it's going to look like. And sometimes it doesn't come off. So my pirates one, where I did pirates striding out the ocean, just never quite came off as I wanted it. But at the same time, I was doing like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft hanging from a jungle waterfall, and that came out perfectly. So I always have this vision of what I want things to look like, and that's done with scenery. And also, you can screw up scenery and just put another layer on and it's generally fine. Engineering, far harder. I hate woodwork. I've got a granite work surface I work on in my kitchen. I do not want to be sawing. I mean, I've drilled into it and I've pulled off chunks of the granite with super glue, small chunks. I don't really want to be drilling on top of it. And I'm not an engineering, I'm more artistic is the way I think of it.
I'm a firm believer that scenery actually makes your railway. It's where the story comes from, and it is an art form as much as it is about modelling. It's interesting that you've got the crossover between sci-fi and railway and dioramas and things like that. What's easier, doing something that is realistic based on something in real life, or making something up that's more fictional?
I never make things up, so I always have source material, even video games. So I did a Halo diorama. It is bang on to one scene in the Halo E3 trailer before it came out, and then they changed the art style so it looks slightly less like the game, which was annoying. And I actually used a background from that trailer. I manipulated it in Photoshop and printed it out. If I'm doing a Tomb Raider waterfall I mentioned a minute ago, I basically found a waterfall I wanted to copy in Brazil and copied that. I always find something to copy. The ones I'm most successful on are the ones that have a really clear vision of what they're going to look like, and I can find something to back it up. So Port de Norwich, I spent years researching it whilst building the first one. I have like 1,000 photos of it, and I mean, as an aside, I built that in 8 weeks. So although I'm currently ripping out my main layout, I built that in 8 weeks. It does show in one or two places. Like someone's pointed out, my telegraph poles are way too big. I'm like, yep. Oh well. Yeah, they are massive, actually massively oversized. It just happened to be the dowels I picked up. And they're magnetic, so I can take them off and swap them when I get the oomph up again. But I built that in 8 weeks for a different TV show that wanted to, and they kept bringing the date forward. And I was like, I can't just build a whole layout in a few weeks. But I did 8 weeks, start to finish. It's only micro. It's only 4 foot by, I don't know, foot and a bit.
That's still a lot of work for a short.
It's 3 foot by foot and a bit. It's ages since I've laid track. It was good to go back to it. But the things that I love more than anything really is designing. Yeah. So for me, the research process, the designing it, the coming up with it, that's actually my favourite bit.
I think you mentioned a couple of times in your opening overview of your journey the word stalled. And I think we've all been there, whether we call it a stalling or a creative block or whatever it may be.
Burning out is also what people call it.
Yeah. But it's a conversation that I have a lot with modelers about that point where you do hit creative block. I mean, I've got layout up there that I had grand ideas for, and then I did the first part and kind of got stuck and thought it doesn't quite look how I wanted it to, and then it's difficult to get yourself back to the point of getting stuck into it. But if somebody asked you what's your best advice for overcoming a stalling period, what would you say to them?
Well, if someone was about to start a layout, my advice would be build it in a modular way, and do a module at a time, so that you can have small discrete projects that you can finish and feel the success of finishing.
Yeah.
The problem with my loft layout, and the reason it's been ripped out, is once you've done so much, it's more of the same. But if someone's stalled on an existing layout, I would say go and do something else for a bit and then come back to it. Whether that's modelling or just playing sim games, racing, or going on holiday, wait till the inspiration hits again. Or perhaps if you're working in one section and you're not feeling it, go to another section and do something different. If you can't get the trees to look right over here, go do a city over here, and it's a completely different type of modelling. Yeah. Just do something different, but don't worry if you burn out. After all, for you, it's a hobby. If you're not enjoying it, why do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes people, they know how much they do enjoy it when they're doing it, so it bothers them that they can't get back to that point. One of the things that I would say to people is, if there's an opportunity, go to a local show, go to where a place where there may be inspiration for you as well, because that's one of the things I love about going to all these different shows as a trader, is looking at all these layouts and getting the inspiration and the ideas come flowing from it as well.
I've made some great contacts. So when one person, Tim Williams, who he's with the Bar Lake Railway, and he models North Wales, does some beautiful modelling. And when he found out I was doing a North Wales lake dock, he's been so helpful with sending me inspirational photos. And I got stuck on the something, and he sent me the slate loads, and I couldn't find any wheels that were right. And he knew already the answer and was able to send me some 3D print wheels, which is why I don't think things run well, because actually my 3D, I'm not convinced all of them are round, and I haven't got enough weight in my 00 stock. So I need to redo the 00 stock heavier somehow, probably with better weights in the but you can't run the empties, they just pop off. I've always found talking to other people really, really stimulating. But I'm an extrovert and I process by talking. If you're more of an introvert, then social media or some of these other things can be helpful, but I also think they can be hindering, because there's this, I want to compare myself to what everyone else is doing. And you might not notice that you're following 6 people and they're only doing one thing a week, because you're seeing 6 things appear. And you're thinking, gosh, they're all doing loads. But actually, they may not be. They may be in that part of their life where they're not too busy on it. It's the summer, they may be too hot up their loft. There's all sorts of reasons. And actually, we have to allow ourselves to go at our pace and not be influenced by how well or how badly everyone else is doing on the internet. And if you're not somebody who can go and talk to people in real life at a club, I think you can have a false expectation of how much you will achieve. I used to spend all day dreaming about doing stuff on my layout and planning it out when I was at work. Obviously, I worked as well, just to be clear. But when I get home, I'd be too knackered and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I think there's some fantastic advice in there for everyone. And you're absolutely right. This is a hobby for people. It's not something that you should put yourself under pressure to do or to get right. And you said yourself that some of your early work was you're talking more about when you were a child, but
not even my early work. Woo, some of my later stuff stinks as well. One of the problems if you're on YouTube is you have this arbitrary deadline where you want to get stuff out.
Yeah.
And I can think of a few projects where I finished earlier and they'd have been better if I'd done another couple of weeks of work on them. But I wanted to get them out. And you've reached a point sometimes where you're just fed up and you want them out the door.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the Lake District diorama wasn't one of them, because that is I think that's my personal favourite of your videos. It was small but perfectly formed, and that for me was one of those ones that showed off so many different techniques all in one small space. But if somebody said to you, what's the number one technique that you enjoy doing the most and get most satisfaction from, what would it be?
Putting tile grout on something. I love tile grout.
Yeah, I did notice that on that layout actually, but you used it in a couple of different ways, and really interesting use of it. But yeah, so tile grout is great. What's your other sort of material of choice?
I've really got into 3D printing since I got them. I would now, I've got so many details I've bought. I probably would design something rather than buy it now. And I enjoy the design process. And it's something I do of an evening to be different from the modelling I've done all day.
Yeah.
I love designing stuff.
Yeah.
I really do. And I just love sitting on a computer design stuff. I used to sit on a computer and do spreadsheets when I was an accountant as well.
Yeah, so sitting on a computer designing things is always going to be better than sitting on a spreadsheet, in my opinion. But
yeah,
that's only because spreadsheets terrify me. So
I know, I love spreadsheets. I love Excel. I'm an Excel queen.
Rather you than me. I always, when I was in that kind of world, I just used to send them to somebody else. They'd send me their PowerPoints so I could get creative with those, but I'd send them my Excels. But coming back to YouTube, you've done a lot of sort of. I hesitate to use this term, but you've done quite a bit of sort of talking yourself down in terms of your YouTube and things like that. But still, it's a huge channel with a great following. What was the? I mean, you said that you gained a lot of followers over lockdown, but was there anything else that sort of really got the momentum going for you, or got people more engaged with your content?
I can think of a couple of things. One, being on the Great Model Railway Challenge, it actually crashed the whole of the website hosting that I was on, the first episode.
Of course, because you have a website as well as your YouTube channel. Just make sure you give everyone the link now.
It's kathymillatt.co.uk.
Nice and simple. And remember, it's double L double T.
And an A. It's a double L A double T.
Yes.
But I am probably going to come up on a search at this point. And then the other one was Luke Towan did me a couple of shout outs. And I've always got 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers off him from that. So he probably owes me 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers. So shout outs from big channels can be really helpful.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, Luke Towan's work is phenomenal as well. Yeah. So I guess he would be one of the answers to this question. But who else on YouTube do you follow? Do you enjoy watching? I
watch so much diversity. It's really hard. So Luke Towan, definitely. Boylai Hobby Times is one of my favourites. He does a lot of Star Wars and mythical imaginary West, which has got cyberpunk, steampunk going into it. He is worth following. I really like Studson Studios junk builds. I'm going to have a completely different set to everybody else. I follow Peter McKinnon because he does like video stuff.
Yep.
Who doesn't? If you're in the YouTube world. There's Mecklin of Sweden, who's Martin, who is also a great guy. I follow these people, but we've actually communicated outside of YouTube because we were in a similar boat. And he was very helpful when I was starting off, basically going, I've got to 100,000 subscribers and I still can't afford to just do YouTube. So there's a point where you start to set your expectation. I still want the 100,000. And that's partly what's driving me. One of my early things when I went into this full time was I want to get to 100,000 YouTube subscribers. And I haven't. And actually I did a video that I put out and I lost more people in the first week than I gained from it, which was quite embarrassing. And but I still want to get to 100,000. It's still eating away that I haven't got there. And I guess that's why I don't think of it as a success, because that was my target for the first year I did this. And now I'm like 2.5 years in and I still haven't got there.
Yeah.
And at one point I was on target to get there last Christmas. And then I just stalled out. And that, I guess, is what's still eating me about YouTube. But in the new world, I'll be putting loads of Pocket Planet content, which is model railways, on there, going out to some of the great delivery partners we've got. We've got one set in Tokyo who are really, really good. So we'll be going out to them. So I think there'll be a lot of more vloggy railway content going forward because I just haven't got the time to model. They do want me to do some modelling for them as well.
Yeah.
So I might do a section or a diorama or whatever it is. Dioramas are easier to do because the big stuff will be going out to big suppliers. But yeah, and then I mention it. We're hoping it will open. I think this is ambitious, but we're hoping it will open at the end of next year.
Wow.
Depends when we get the funding. And at that point, we will need people around to install and add all the details and check things at this end. So we will be needing a local UK team that are actually modelers as well.
Yeah, I guess seeing things like Pete Waterman's Chester Cathedral, masterpieces for the last 2 years, and the kind of interest that they're getting, and they are a purist kind of layout, but even seeing the kind of viewership that's getting and the kind of attendance that's getting must give some real enthusiasm to something that's more led towards tourists in a big tourist location, just how successful it could be.
It was all planned well before that, I think, and it just takes, lockdown put everything back, nobody was funding anything.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to get a new startup with going, I think, at the moment. People are a bit, cost of living, a bit reluctant to invest. So it's been a bit of a long process. I can see already what whole sections of it look like. I've done all the plans, which will change. But I've done all the plans for funding, so I can visualise whole sections of the rural section. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be so good. But yeah, very excited by that. But I probably drifted off what you asked me.
No, that was pretty much what I was looking for. I think just because everything that I think about is very much focused on actually working on scenics and things like that. There was one slightly strange question I wanted to ask you, and that was, you must have a lot of tools and things that you need to make the dioramas, the layouts, all of the details that you put around. I guess the question is, if there was one piece of equipment or tool that you could not be without, what is it?
My X-Acto blade, or my box cutter if it's bigger, but a knife.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time cutting things out in detail then.
Yeah. Well, just everything I do in the house, or everything I do. Seriously, if I had to pick one tool, I couldn't, because you need a bunch. But tweezers, glue, knives, tools I couldn't live without. 3D printers, tools I don't want to live without.
Yeah.
Though, just as a warning, I have noticed. So I currently model in my kitchen. I go to my mum's to eat because I can't eat in my house at the moment. Got that bad. So when you're talking about tools, I'm there shaking my head because I've got too many and I'm having to rationalise. And the reason I've ripped my layout out is I was stalled on it, and I'm going to have a loft extension and put a proper workshop up there. And I'm going to put proper ventilation in. So I've got a kitchen, a utility, and then a 3D print room, which was the old garage bit. And I've had headaches for 2 years doing this. And I think it's because I'm working with the fumes and everything around. So I haven't had a headache for a couple of weeks because I've been on holiday. Came back, I've been doing 2 days of prints, and I've got a headache again. And I think it's to do with the 3D print, just the resin smells. And if my workshop is upstairs, the 3D printers are going to stay downstairs.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to heat them further away. And I bought air purifiers, and I bought some plants. I nearly killed with the hot weather, but hey, let's not go there.
Haven't we all?
And they've all come downstairs to one of the cooler rooms now. And I'm trying to, and I've got a great vision for that upstairs space being a beautiful workshop, and having the 2 stations as the private bit, having integral ventilation in there so it will suck the fumes straight away, keeping the 3D print separate, because and I spray lacquers. I love spraying airbrush lacquers. They just spray so much better than anything else I've ever sprayed. The finish is beautiful. I love them, but they don't half stink. And so that probably wasn't helping with the headaches. And I've got extraction, but I didn't have a hole to the outside. So the builder next door, he's been there 2 years, came round and knocked a hole through for me, and I've got it vented outside now. But I've got my giant vent from the layout now down, and I'm going to put that in. because you do realise when you do this full time just how much some of those chemicals are quite noxious.
Yeah.
So I would say my most important tool is an open door so I can vent the room. Because I just, it will vent really quickly. The trouble is my utility where the 3D printers and 3D print room, they don't actually have any opening windows. So I've got all the rooms with the smells and no opening windows. So when the builders are in, I'm debating having the window that doesn't open made into an opening one, obviously buying a new one, because it's so much easier to vent. But then it gets too cold in the winter. So anyway, I'm really seriously considering my health, having done this for 2 years, because Pocket Planet's brilliant, and I'm hoping it will be a series of Pocket Planets eventually. But if it's just one, it's probably a 2-3 year job, and I'm going to come back into this with some different ideas of what I'm going to do, because it won't be YouTube again. Hopefully I'll have hit 100 grand, so I won't be obsessed about it by then. I just want the plaque. But I'm going to, come back into this modelling full time, and I need to have it better, because it has, and I think this is one of the reasons I've been down about it. It's been so hard. You can't go anywhere in my house without there being modelling. And my new bosses came round to pick me up to go somewhere, and they were like, and one of them, was just shocked. And I went to visit him, stayed at his house when we were working in London, and his house is immaculately tidy. And I'm like, yeah, because I had 32 boxes of stock I was getting rid of, the fold flat crates.
Yeah.
I had 32 of those that I got rid of, and I've kept 6. But I got rid of a medium-sized layout by US terms, but we're talking 12-foot square, triple deck. I had a lot of passenger cars, a lot of big steam, big diesel. And I kept small industrial, small box cars.
Yeah.
So everything got reboxed and put in, and I made myself keep to the 6. And I kept the better quality ones, because if I'm going to do micro layout size going forward, I don't need 500 lines worth of stock and locos.
No.
Really don't. So I got rid of it, and it was quite cathartic. But it's still so much stuff up my loft. Wiring, old junk wiring from the house that's been reused. I've got a box full of tortoise motors. I did use hand pulls on my last layout, so I'm not quite sure whether I'll ever use them again, but I've got about 30 or 40 tortoise motors off the layout.
It's difficult to get rid of stuff though, isn't it? Because every time you go to get rid of it, you think, oh yeah, but one day I'll go to do something and there it'll be just perfect, what I need. So yeah, no, I'm the same.
Huge branches of buddleia that I was going to use for conifers. I've done it once, I probably won't again. So I got rid of them. So there's been a lot of, I've got a huge number of kits as well. So I've got crates and crates of unbuilt craftsman kits. I mean, crates and crates of unbuilt, really expensive craftsman kits. And part of me goes, I may come back to those and redo them. And I may well come back to them and redo them or do them. So I'm not getting rid of those. But I'm going to put kitchen cabinets up there. And I think it's a big room when I'm done. Because I'm in a semi, so the roofs are quite well. I think it's going to be a 16-foot square room. To be able to get about 20 cabinets in for kitchens and some wall cabinets where it isn't slopey roofs. So I've got loads of ideas of just becoming this perfect space until I inhabit it, and then it'll be a mess again. And getting my kitchen back and being able to have people around. Now we can do lockdown. It's gone. I kind of need to get my kitchen back.
Yeah. And do you know what? I had a wood-built garage / workshop that a couple of winters ago I thought I'm gonna clad this out and put insulation in there, and that'll be a nice working space. It is now just full of anything that you could need to go modelling with. But I think that's part of the creative type as well, isn't it? To just
it is
stuff.
And because I do so much variety of stuff. I mean, I follow Mike Rinaldi's weathering. He does oil weathering. If ever you want to know how to oil weather, Rinaldi Studio is the best place to go. He is just so good at it. And he does about a 3-hour live stream every week. So I can't keep up because I just can't consume that much content because I need to watch it.
Yeah.
But he literally just has oil paints, a brush and some thinners. And he's like, and this is really all I have, and some pigments. And I'm looking at it going, that's like not even a quarter of a cupboard, and I'm planning to put in 20, and I'm going to have to shed loads of stuff out. Yeah, and I've got 14 wall cabinets planned, and I've got loads of trolleys because I have a lot of my scenics on trolleys that I can wheel around. And there's still the 3D print room and all the resin and all the stuff downstairs as well. I'm just like, really got too much stuff.
Well, I don't think there's such a thing as having too much stuff. And
there is when you can't get into your lounge, your front bedroom, your junk room, and even your own bedroom, because the landing is just full of the stuff you're sorting.
I think just as a final thing to touch on, I mean, we've sort of talked a lot about scenics and we've mentioned railways, but without talking about the trains. If you had to pick one loco, what's your favourite of all time?
I like. I really like the streamline look, American, that 50s streamline American look.
Yeah.
And there's several. I had a I1s, J1s. Anyway, I had these J2, or whatever they were. They were beautiful. I5s. I'm going to get there. It was a letter and a number. I5s, and they were beautiful, streamlined. And I had 2 of them. They were like really expensive. I've just got rid of them because, you know, they're beautiful, but I'm never going to run them again. So yeah, there is this point where I'm drawn to the bright colours. You know, think of the Super Chief and it's got the silver and the red and the yellow, and it just looks. I love that. I kept the Comet, which is the New Haven. It's like a multiple unit, and it's like 50s slopey blue and silver.
Yeah.
I'm going to use it on a sci-fi layout, I think.
You're making me feel really dull for just being a big HST fan right now, but
I just said I like shiny trains, though, slopey fronts. HST,
oh yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
I grew up. I used to catch a train to school, and it was always slam door DMUs.
Yeah.
You know, the HST was just so nice compared to a slam door DMU.
Yeah. I was saying to SBJ, the guest on the first podcast, that for me, I grew up in Essex, and I grew up surrounded by Network South East. So I've always had a penchant for that red, white, and blue livery. But there you go. Anyway, look, I've taken up a huge amount of your time, and you've got no doubt a ton of things to be getting on with. I think I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you for giving up your time to come on Rail People. If there was one piece of advice you could give to somebody who's just getting started in this, what would it be?
Just try it. You won't succeed the first time, but just try it. You'll only get better. People say to me, I don't have your skill. I'm like, it's practice. I do this all day, every day now, and I still produce clunkers. Especially with video editing, it's very easy to take some of the clunkers out and not shoot the back end that looks awful if you want. I tend to leave them in because I want to show people that there's clunkers out there, but just go for it. And it won't be perfect. Do not expect, sorry, this is more than one piece, isn't it? Do not expect to build your first layout as your last layout. My one upstairs was so behind where I wanted it to be. The quality just wasn't there, and that's why I ripped it out at the end of the day. Every time I went up there, it depressed me because there was so much to rip out and redo because I'd moved on. Yeah. So just don't expect to be brilliant when you start, but just start. That's the most important thing. Whatever it is you're trying, whether it's ballasting, your first wire tree, whether you're just doing some static grass, it might suck. So what? Just don't show it on social media. Show it to your friends you trust and get their advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we were to summarise that, it's just try it and don't put too much pressure on yourself. It sounds like cracking advice to me. Kathy, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming to talk to us. Fascinating story how you've done it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant to chat to you, and I know I'm only your second, so I really hope this grows because it's been great fun talking to you.
I'm looking forward to talking to more people. We're hoping to get more modelers, but also I'd like to talk to some industry professionals as well, even manufacturers as well, and get the story behind how they got to where they are. And it's a good opportunity for me to say, actually, if you can think of somebody who I should be talking to, then feel free to get in touch. There's the contact us page on rail-stuff.com, or you can get us on Instagram as well, mainly at RAILstuff is the easy way to find us on there. So let us know if any suggestions. But Kathy, thank you so much. Good luck with everything, and keep us up to date with the planet. Remind me of the name again.
Pocket Planet.
Pocket Planet. I knew it was alliterated, but I just couldn't remember. I wanted to say Project Planet, but Pocket Planet makes a lot more sense. So keep us up to date with Pocket Planet. We look forward to it.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.